In the sleepy hollow of Willow Creek, folks prided themselves on knowing every nook and cranny of their neighbors' lives. So, when the quiet, dust-kissed farm girl, Emily Carter, and her younger brother, Jacob, stepped through the imposing archway of Ridgewood High, the resident bullies believed they had their number. Just two more shy, unassuming kids, fresh off the farm, ripe for the picking. They were convinced these two would never dare to push back. But what Troy Dalton and his cronies didn't know, what no one in that whole gossipy town knew, was that Emily wasn't just a farm girl. She wasn't just quiet, and she was certainly more than just new. Emily Carter had spent 4 brutal years forging herself in the crucible of the U.S. Navy, 2 of those years as one of the most elite operatives in the entire country, a fully trained Navy SEAL. And when those self-important bullies cornered her little brother behind the rusted bleachers of the school gym, when they shoved him against the cold brick, mocked his gentle nature, and snatched his worn backpack, they didn't just pick a fight. They unwittingly tore open a forgotten vault, unleashing a force they could never have possibly imagined. This, then, is the story of the quiet storm that followed. Emily Carter, at 22, carried herself with an almost imperceptible strength. Though she had traded her combat boots for muddy farm ones, a certain stillness clung to her, the quiet confidence of someone who had navigated tempests and emerged with an unbreakable spine. Her words were soft, her movements understated. She possessed a natural grace that allowed her to blend into any crowd, a phantom in flannel. She never boasted, never sought the spotlight. She didn't even bother to correct the well-meaning townsfolk who, seeing her calloused hands and sun-kissed skin, assumed she was simply another hard-working farm girl, her life spent exclusively feeding horses and milking cows under the vast Willow Creek sky. Her little brother, Jacob, a bright-eyed 16-year-old, had always looked up to her, his admiration a steady beacon. When their parents were tragically taken in a car accident 2 years prior, Emily had stepped seamlessly into the dual role of sister and guardian. With a heavy heart, she had cut short her promising career in the SEAL program, returning to the only home they had ever known. She took over the struggling family farm, ensuring Jacob wouldn't face the crushing weight of grief and loneliness alone. Jacob was brilliant, kind-hearted, and gentle to a fault, a boy who meticulously avoided conflict like a moth avoiding a flame. But high school, particularly Ridgewood High, held an unforgiving contempt for vulnerability. From the moment their beat-up pickup truck pulled into the student parking lot, the bullies had marked Jacob. Their ringleader was Troy Dalton, a senior with a physique sculpted by the football field and an ego as inflated as the stadium scoreboard. He wore his arrogance like an impenetrable suit of armor, genuinely believing he was untouchable. His sycophantic friends Kyle, Brandon, and Seth trailed him like obedient shadows, their snickers echoing his every taunt. Jacob, clinging to Emily's advice, tried to ignore them. "Stay calm," she told him, her voice low and steady. "Most bullies just get bored if you don't feed their fire." But Troy Dalton wasn't a bully who got bored. He was a bully who escalated. It began with casual shoves in the crowded hallways. Then came the biting insults, whispered just loud enough to be heard. Soon, Jacob's homework mysteriously vanished, and his textbooks reappeared with pages torn or defaced. Jacob, ever protective, didn't tell Emily everything. He saw the lines of worry already etched around her eyes, the strain of endless farm chores, mending fences, nurturing crops, keeping the livestock fed and healthy. Emily already carried a burden heavy enough for 2. He couldn't add to it. But one Thursday afternoon, the delicate balance shattered. Emily, arriving early to pick Jacob up, parked her old, faded blue pickup truck behind the gym, its engine purring a quiet protest. She stepped out, adjusting the collar of her simple flannel shirt, her sturdy boots still coated in the fine dust of morning chores. Then she heard a sharp shout, followed by a heavy thud, and finally, a muffled cry. Jacob's voice. Emily moved, not with the hesitant steps of a farm girl, but with a fluidity and speed that would have baffled anyone who thought they knew her. She approached the corner of the building, her footsteps unnaturally silent, a shadow against the afternoon sun. Rounding the corner, she saw him, Troy Dalton, his broad shoulder pinning Jacob against the grimy wall. Kyle's phone raised, was filming the humiliation. Brandon stood by, a cruel laugh bubbling on his lips. Seth, meanwhile, held Jacob's backpack aloft, swinging it like a grotesque trophy. "Say it," Troy growled, shoving Jacob again, harder this time. "Say you're a worthless farm rat." Jacob's voice, barely a whisper, trembled with a desperate plea. "Please, just stop." Emily's fingers, strong and calloused, curled into fists, the knuckles turning white. Deep within her mind, a switch clicked, a silent, internal alarm. It was a switch she had spent years in unforgiving training, mastering the art of controlling. She took one slow, deliberate breath, the air filling her lungs, and then she stepped forward. Troy didn't notice her at first. None of them did. They were too engrossed in Jacob's fear, too consumed by their own petty cruelty. Emily walked closer, her presence radiating a calm as profound and still as the deepest lake water. "Put him down," she said, her voice a soft, almost melodic whisper that somehow cut through the taunts. Troy spun around, his eyebrows arching in feigned surprise. Well, looks like Big Sister finally decided to show up." Kyle, sensing the drama was escalating, kept his phone pointed, a smirk stretching across his face. Emily didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She didn't even raise her voice, maintaining that unnerving stillness. "I'll say it once more," she repeated, her words hanging in the air, weighted with an unspoken authority. "Put him down." Troy, fueled by arrogance and a misplaced sense of superiority, took a confrontational step toward her, his hulking frame towering over her slender one. "Or what, little lady? You gonna moo at me like your cows?" The other boys guffawed, their laughter echoing off the gym wall. But Emily didn't break eye contact. Her face remained utterly unreadable. Her breathing stayed slow, measured, a rhythmic counterpoint to the chaos. Her stance, though subtle, was stable, perfectly balanced, a posture Troy had never encountered before. Not from a girl. Not from anyone in this entire school. And then he made the mistake. He reached out, his hand open, and shoved her. A crude, aggressive push, meant to intimidate, to send her stumbling back in fear. But Emily merely took a single, controlled step back, absorbing the brute force with a technique so perfect it was almost invisible. She didn't stumble. She didn't lose her balance. She didn't even blink. "What are you?" Troy muttered, confusion warring with a flicker of unease in his eyes. Emily's voice, when she spoke again, had become a whisper of ice, each word a shard. "I'm someone who warned you." He lunged, pure instinct driving him forward, fueled by sudden, irrational anger. Bad decision. In less than a second, a blur of motion too fast for the eye to track, Emily executed a precise wrist grab, a fluid pivot, a controlled takedown. One moment, Troy was lunging. The next, he was flat on his back on the rough asphalt, staring up at the indifferent sky in utter shock. His arm pinned harmlessly behind him in a grip of iron. The other boys froze. Kyle's phone clattered to the ground. Forgotten. Brandon's jaw sagged open, mirroring his wide, disbelieving eyes. Jacob stared, a silent gasp escaping his lips, as if he just witnessed lightning strike twice in the same spot. Emily released Troy, stepping back, her movements as calm and deliberate as ever. "I don't want to hurt you," she said, her voice a quiet bomb after the sudden storm. "But I will protect my brother." Troy scrambled to his feet, a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes, backing away like a cornered animal. You're crazy." Emily shook her head slowly. "No, I'm trained." "Trained in what?" Seth asked, his voice barely a tremor, the arrogance completely stripped away. Emily looked at each of them, her eyes steady, unblinking, and utterly unshakable. "The Navy," she stated, her gaze lingering on Troy for a beat. "SEAL Division." Silence. Not just quiet, but a vast, thunderous silence that seemed to swallow the very air around them. No one moved. No one dared to breathe. Even Jacob, standing beside her, felt a jolt of shock, realizing he hadn't known the full, incredible truth until this very moment. Emily gently placed a supportive hand on her brother's shoulder, a silent gesture of comfort and strength. "Come on, Jacob," she said, her voice softening. "Let's go home." As they walked away, side by side, Troy and his pathetic gang remained rooted to the spot. They didn't speak a single word. They didn't attempt to follow. They didn't even try to threaten. And they never, not once, looked at Jacob again in the same way. Because for the first time in their self-absorbed lives, they had been taught a lesson more profound than any textbook could offer. They had realized something truly important. Real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't bully. It doesn't need attention or validation. Real strength, in its purest, most essential form, simply protects. And Emily Carter was strength incarnate. Thank you for watching this powerful story of quiet resilience. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe to SH Stories for more emotional and inspiring narratives every day. What kind of story would you like to hear next? Tell me in the comments below.